In Hegel's words, a spirit is this absolute substance, which is the unity of the different independent self-consciousness. Unit of consciousness, unity, spirit. I that is we that is I. Okay. And he says the essence of God is spirit, also used as world spirit, and also the idea. He says the world spirit is the spirit of the world as it reveals itself through the human consciousness. The relationship of men to it is that of the single parts to the whole, which is their substance. So, in essence, collective consciousness. Okay. How is this collective consciousness changing? Or how is the spirit changing? He says spirit is changing in two important ways. One, increasing freedom. Increasing freedom. And which also meant to Hegel increasing rationality. Increasing freedom and increasing rationality. That's one. And second point is it is conscious of its freedom. Conscious of its freedom. Not that it is objectively free, but it is also self-consciously free. Okay. These are the two main trends. And so, he deals history in terms of stages that show increasing freedom and increasing consciousness of that freedom. And this history is change in terms of evolution of civilizations like this. And civilization consists of states. Okay. In a civilization, many aspects of civilization are linked: art, religion, political system, linked. Okay. So this is how spirit is evolving. Here, he also explains the methodology of evolution. The method. Spirit is also called the idea. The way spirit evolves is also the way, in general, the ideas evolve. In general, the ideas evolve. And how do, in general, ideas evolve? Here, Hegel is influenced by Plato's Republic. For example, how does a Socrates conduct a discussion in the Republic? Other person says something, okay, giving one's own due is justice. But Socrates asks that if you take knife, if you borrow a knife, and the other person comes and asks for that knife with an intention that he wants to use the knife to kill the other and he is so angry, will you return the knife? He will say, no, that is not justice. Then Socrates will ask, what is justice? If returning what is borrowed is not justice. So this is idea, counter idea, and then goes on like this, synthesis. So an idea meets its opposite, and then idea and the opposite, this idea is called thesis, opposite is called antithesis, thesis and antithesis become synthesis, and this synthesis is the thesis for the next stage, and then antithesis, and then this. This is called dialectics. Dialectics. So Socrates arrives at truth through dialectical process, which is called resolution of contradictions. Hegel says spirit also in the same way. Consciousness evolves through resolution of contradictions. Okay. So a civilization develops in a particular way, it reaches a particular stage, and then it cannot grow further. It faces its opposite, and then another stage comes, another stage. And next one, like this. So, through resolution of the ideas, so the contradictions in the ideas, new ideas emerge, and that is how the spirit evolves, like the way truth evolves in Socrates' discussions. And Hegel identifies the actual civilizations. He takes 4 civilizations. These are called stages in history. 4 civilizations. Oriental world, Greece, Rome, and German world. See, look at this. German world means, by which he means Protestant Northern Europe since the Reformation. So he is taking a civilization, and within the civilization there are states. Why is it an increasing freedom? The East knew only that one is free. This Oriental world, as represented in the Egypt, India, China, and Persia. Only one is free, because it is despotism. And the Greek and the Roman world, some are free. Some are. And German world, all are free. The first political form which we observe is despotism, the second democracy and aristocracy, and third monarchy. So to Hegel, the highest stage is monarchy, not democracy. In fact, he thought the state he belonged to, the Prussian state, reached a very high stage of evolution. He calls the first stage of Oriental world childhood of history, the second stage adolescence, because of slavery, not all are free, and third is manhood of history, because positive laws are passed that enhance freedom and people become more conscious of freedom. And fourth is full flowering. So this old age of history. By old age, it doesn't mean loss of strength, but only more maturity. So these are the four stages in which from one man being free to more and more people becoming free. Next, he talks about consciousness in freedom. Consciousness of freedom. World history is the progress of consciousness of freedom. A progress whose necessity it is our business to comprehend. The task of history is to understand this process of how the consciousness of freedom is increasing. Hegel says the Greeks had no conscience. The habit of living for their own country without further reflection was the principle dominant among them. So they live for their country but without further reflection. Hegel equates living for their country somehow as increase in freedom, but not living as a result of conscious reflection is not being as progressive as what is there in the next stage. In the next stage, in the Germanic world, there is such consciousness. Reformation declares that man is in his very nature destined to be free. So Reformation says man is in his very nature destined to be free, which means it is consciousness of freedom which is there in German world, which was not there in the Greek world. So this, okay. And then spirit is evolving, civilizations are emerging, and in this state is the unit. The vehicle of historical progress is the state. At each stage, an entire civilization is built around it. Civilizations, art, religion, philosophy are connected. Take, for example, how gods evolve. Oriental world had forces of nature as gods. Greeks had anthropomorphic conception. Christianity had conception of the unity of the divine and the human nature. So, in the first stage, gods are much away from humans. Second, anthropomorphic conception. And in Christianity, there is unity, which means people's awareness of their own growth or their own relationship with God is changing from very distant to closeness. And then another thing he says is, in this uh, progress, individuals play a role and not only states. Okay. The great individuals of world history, how do the individuals play a role? The great individuals of world history seize upon their higher universal and make it their own end. It is they who realize the end appropriate to the higher conception of the spirit. So spirit is going in this direction, and individuals understand the direction and be its agents. These important actors are called world historical individuals. For example, Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar. And as the spirit uses them, after it uses them, it discards. After the world spirit achieves its ends, they fall aside like empty husks. Alexander the Great was important in a particular context. Julius Caesar was important. But after they are being used by the spirit, they are discarded. So Hegel gives the impression that spirit is just moving like this, making use of individuals, making use of states, and creating civilizations. Okay. And then discarding them, and then creating new civilizations. Okay. As if spirit is somehow external to mankind. It is simply using the mankind to evolve itself, as if God is using people to become better and better. Hegel equated the collective consciousness and spirit also as God. Okay. So God is using the mankind to evolve into higher forms. Okay. Hegel did not meet either Alexander or Julius Caesar, but he saw one world historical figure, and that was Napoleon. Okay. He calls Napoleon world soul. World soul. See, he says in a letter, he saw Napoleon in Jena after Napoleon's victory against Prussia. Hegel says, the emperor, this world soul. Napoleon is the world soul. I saw riding through the city to a review of his troops. It is indeed a wonderful feeling to see such an individual who, here concentrated in a single point, sitting on a horse, reaching out over the world and dominates it. Okay, so you can see the world spirit concentrated here, sitting on a horse. Okay. Why was Napoleon given such a role by, I thought, had such a role? Because he was contributing to the spread of ideals of the French Revolution. Okay. So Hegel would have considered Lenin, Mao also as the world souls. Okay. Of course, Hegel wrote about not the writers, but rulers, I think. So through some people, spirit operates. And then after that, it is it discards them. But the point is, what purpose do these concepts like spirit, God, soul, what purpose do they serve? Hegel doesn't explain the sources of these things, but somehow he gave the impression through all these things, history has a logic, history has a pattern. Okay, and that it is the task of the historian to identify the logic, to identify the pattern. It uses people on its way, and it knows how to go. It has a definite direction. It is simply using up individuals and states to achieve its end. So history as a kind of inexorable process. Okay. So the concept of spirit may have served that purpose, that we are simply used as instruments by a great historical process. Okay. We will see what that means.